Anthropic barreling now towards a potential split with the government. The AI company's CEO, Dario Amodei, saying that Anthropic, in his words, quote, cannot in good conscience allow the Pentagon to use its AI models without limitation. Now, Anthropic has been in what has been some pretty intense negotiations with the government, which wants the ability to use the company's technology for what they're calling all lawful purposes. Anthropic, though, wants to put limits on two things: mass surveillance of Americans and on autonomous weapons. And in his statement, Amodei said that the threats by the Pentagon to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk or invoke the Defense Production Act don't change his position. Earlier this week, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth set a deadline of today at 5 p.m., 5:01 exactly, for Anthropic to agree to the government's demands. I want to talk about this because it's a fascinating issue. Joining us right now is former Pentagon official Brent Sadler. He's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Good morning to you. Brent, you have sort of these two competing ideas, and the question is whether they're competing at all. On one side, you have the Pentagon saying, we're only using this product and AI for, quote unquote, all lawful purposes. And on the other end, you have Amodei and the Anthropic team saying, look, we don't want this being used for mass surveillance, which, by the way, would be illegal. But interestingly, Amodei makes the point that because of the way AI works, it may not be that you need to actually pursue, quote unquote, mass surveillance. It could be that the AI collects lots of different surveillance pieces that are all disparate and separate and combines them together to do something that is the equivalent of mass surveillance. And then on the other end, he says that maybe one day autonomous weapons are okay, but right now the technology isn't good enough to be used in that context, and so he doesn't want it to be because he worries about what it could do. What do you make of this?
Well, thanks for having me on. You know, there's a lot of layers to this, but the core issue right now, I think, is going to be the Defense Production Act, the DPA. It's up for renewal in September. That's being used as a threat to compel or to basically take over the intellectual property that's Anthropic, that's already being used inside the Department of War. That will have to play out, but I think how this negotiation and the concerns are addressed on both sides, the corporate from Anthropic as well as from the Pentagon, will have a lot of bearing on how Congress is going to view a renewal of this presidential power, which has played a significant role in things like COVID. But when it comes to a company that enters into an agreement or has its products being used by the Department of War, national security, there's a lot of sensitivities about the access to information. And once they're inside that, what do they do if they're pushed out? And this is the other threat, which I think is a little bit more thin, and that is labeling them as a national security threat and to be blacklisted out of the supply chains. But clearly, I mean, Anthropic is being used. It's being used to monitor and access the processes in the Pentagon to improve them, and that's better for the taxpayers. Nothing illegal by that, and I think in the corporate world, similar things are being done to improve performance and productivity. It's not clear that's what's actually being done, but that's something that the Pentagon's been compelled to do, or to do better through its own accounting processes.
Brent, let's go back, though, to the merits of the arguments here for a moment. Well, actually, you know what? I'll take you on, and let's just discuss this Defense Production Act issue, which is effectively a takeover of intellectual property, if in fact that's what they would ultimately do. The point that Anthropic makes, which is, I think, on the face of it, accurate, is on one end you have the Pentagon saying this service effectively is a national threat. Right? It's a security threat to the country, right? That's one of the arguments they're making. Yeah. And on the other argument they're making is it's so good we have to have it ourselves. So I don't know if you can be both at the same time, but it's interesting that they're not saying this thing is so good we need to have it, and instead at the same time they're saying this thing represents a threat. That's the one issue. Yes. On the other piece of this, there is the ultimate merit of what you think a product like this and its power should be used and how it can be used lawfully. Yeah.
So there's nothing that's been presented that I've read about that the Pentagon would pursue something illegal. And as you rightly stated already, mass surveillance of American citizens, that's not the purview of the Pentagon. It's also illegal, as you state. And so there's no indication that what's being intended or what could be used would cross that line. And so I think that's perhaps an argument that's being made without merit. Now, the issue about artificial intelligence is really important here to understand. The algorithms change and evolve over time based on the data that it has access to. And if that access was massive databases and processes, highly classified, connected to national security, yes, if Anthropic is pushed out with that data, understanding or machine learning, then yeah, there may be some vulnerabilities and dangers in letting that back out, or at least having that corporation continue on evolving and modifying its artificial intelligence algorithms.
Brent,
So there is a threat, and it's in the nature of AI. But again, on the benefit side of this, it's a tool that has a huge immense potentiality for improved productivity.
Brent, let me just push back on you.
Yes.
If, in fact, it's not going to be used for mass surveillance and everybody agrees it's illegal to pursue mass surveillance, why wouldn't the Pentagon say, OK, we're not doing that, and the product will not and cannot be used in that context? Then you could take that issue off the table. And now we're down to how the product is effectively used for autonomous weapons, in which case you have the AI company, the folks who actually built it, saying it's not ready yet and it's dangerous and may not actually work the way it is intended. Those are the inventors of it. And you have the Pentagon, on the other hand, saying it may very well that we still want to use it that way. In both cases, at least from somebody who's looking at it from the outside, I say to myself, I don't even understand what this fight is about, because I would think the Pentagon would say, you're right, we're not using it for mass surveillance, and therefore that's fine. It will not be used the way you're describing, meaning to effectively collect up lots of different disparate pieces of information and collect them together, which, by the way, may or may not be actual mass surveillance, but could be used in that way. And by the way, the system itself, if you prompt it properly and are trying to get at certain things, it may start to try to collect those things on its own, which is, I think, one of the things that Dario is trying to suggest is a problem. And on the other end is this issue that the product is not safe and ready to be used in the context that the Pentagon is potentially thinking about using it.
So Anthropic has no standing, I think, in that kind of thinking about it. One, if the Pentagon uses this tool and it has a negative effect or causes damages, either financial or physical, if they put it into a weapons system, it's not Anthropic that's going to be accountable in that case. It's the improper, the ineffective use of it by the Pentagon and the associated damages. So it's the Pentagon that's accountable. So Anthropic trying to put limitations really has no standing, I think. The other part of it is it's in a national security interest to continue to try to advance and mature these in a national security kind of use case. And it's not appropriate for Anthropic at this stage to put
you have Anthropic publicly saying, we don't think the product is ready for this use case. We're working to try to make it ready for this use case, and we think we're going to get it there. He effectively says that. He's working on it. To me, it would be like an automobile maker saying, we have this car that we know, will go off the road. We know it's going to go off the road, and we don't want to sell the product to anybody because we know it's going to kill people and it's not going to work the way it's supposed to be used. And then you have basically somebody saying, well, I still want to buy the car that could go off the road. And
well,
it's true that the liability may ultimately go to the driver that runs off the road. But if you know as the product maker that the product isn't ready, it seems insane to allow people to do that.
Well, the product's already in use inside the Pentagon, so it would be better. And I think the two are talking past each other. Anthropic is saying in some kind of expectation that it's going to be used in this way, which the Pentagon is already saying they're not going to use the tool that way, but they'd like to explore it for the use of AI systems, perhaps. But they're not saying anything explicitly is on or off the table, and agreeing with the concerns of Anthropic, but unwilling to enter into contractual terms that Anthropic basically gives them a veto privilege over the operations of the Pentagon. So I think they need to come to an understanding and work together on the details. It seems like in some of the public back and forth, they might actually get to that. But I think the bigger danger for not just the Anthropic, but if corporations or enterprises are allowed to, after engaging or entering into a relationship with the Defense Department, the Department of War, it might set a very negative precedent where the Pentagon now has to change its operations, which I think is going way too far in this discussion. As long as it doesn't have illegal ramifications, of which there's another process to go through to ensure that what military operations do meet law.